Welcome to ShingieChatsLife.
So, welcome to ShingieChatsLife, which is something that I've been wanting to do for many years, just purely because of the podcast that I've come across, which have actually helped me to even, or have inspired me to kind of want to start my own, and purely out of the fact of the relationships that I have with people, the openness is one of the things that have really led me to want to actually set something up like this. And I guess in the sense of why, the why as to why, or what I'm hoping to achieve with the podcast in general, is mainly to kind of just help build a barrier between, or build a bridge between the different generations, in the sense of us actually being able to understand why we are all the way we are, how things have developed over time, and to kind of help us to understand one another's sort of different journeys in that sense, and also just to kind of shed light in terms of how different people work on their mental health, how different people look after themselves, because it's either very much one side where you've got some people who are very much 5 a.m. club, I get up, I sleep for whether it's 2 hours or 12 hours, and it's very much one of those things where one person, what works for one person won't necessarily work for everybody else. And what I'm hoping is that with this podcast that I can actually help different people understand that it's okay to explore with different methods that aren't necessarily normal to one person, and also just to help shed light on the fact that there's no problem for people to be vulnerable either, and that it's okay to open up, or what's the saying typically, it's like it's okay not to be okay, and I'm very glad to have my mum Rosemary as my first guest, as this literally you've played a massive role in terms of helping me to better myself and to actually help me feel comfortable to even start opening up about the things that I openly talk about now. So, yeah, thank you for being my first guest, and welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you.
And yeah, no, I'm excited. How are you?
No, I feel very honored for the fact that I'm your first guest, and I've been, super supportive of your motion and your intentions. Yeah, so I'm here to support you.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. And I guess just to kind of start us off, of course, I know your journey very well, but in the sense of, I wanted to kind of just pick your brains in the sense of your kind of key moments in your journey. Like, let's say, even we're talking from, let's say, back home, and how things were in terms of when you actually first came to this country, what that was like for you, and if you can just talk me through how you feel you've gotten yourself to the place you're at now.
Yeah, that's a difficult one. Yeah, I mean, coming here, obviously, just like anyone who comes from another country to try and settle in a country that you don't know anybody, it was a big challenge. And my most challenge really was how I left you. Because remember, you were just 1 year, 9 months, and it was very difficult for me because I just left you in a dining room with your grandmother playing with a toy, and I knew that it would take long before I see you again. So those were, I would say, I don't want to think about it because I still have that image up to now of you clinging onto a toy, but me knowing that the following day I was going to be on a flight to an unknown place and you leaving you behind. Yeah, I think that was it's a moment, like I said, I don't want to really Yeah.
No, I get where you're coming from, and I think it's one of those. Is even I can remember when I was probably, let's say, four or five, where it was when I actually came over myself.
Actually, two and a half. Yeah.
Yeah, 2.5, and I remember it was really. It's a weird one to say that I remember, but I do remember the fact that I think it took some time for
you to bond with me. Yeah.
For us to bond again,
Yeah.
which is a weird one because now it's like we're literally best friends.
Yeah, I know.
So no, but that's understandable. And I guess what was it like for you once you'd actually like started or you'd moved here, and what was it like at first?
Yeah, like I said, I was doing my business studies course, like initially, and that is what I wanted to like do until when you guys came to like join us. Yeah, obviously me and your like dad, and I had to now focus on what was more important, and what was more important was to look after you. I mean, you came first for about 2 years, yeah, and you adjusting also to a new environment was very challenging in that aspect because language barrier was one, and you had sort of this hyperactive behavior that, you know, I was not feeling comfortable to like leave you with someone I didn't know. For example, like when you were in preschool, yeah, you were always like in trouble. Oh yeah, but anyway, not to go too much into that. The point is, from the moment you came here, I like realized what sort of a person you were, or child, should I say? Yeah, because you've always known what you want. It's just the way of expressing it, which was like maybe for some people they would regard it as you were too active or too hyper. Yeah, but under that hyperactivity, like I said, you knew what you wanted. If I give that example where you kicked your teacher in like preschool, but the reason was you were so much into watering the plants, the like flowers, and she had stopped you from like doing that. So the fact that this is what you like wanted, you had to find a way. Not that you should always be kicking people, you know, in terms of like getting what you want, but those were telltale signs of what you grow up to be. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because it's like I can even reflect back on all of, let's say, parents' evenings where teachers would almost kind of, I don't know whether ridicule is the right word, but they would always kind of have a negative perception of how I was, whereas I remember you would always defend me in the sense of, one, of course, you would always mention to them that they actually get the toned down version and the fact that I'm way worse at home. But then it was also then the fact of, I think, just that acceptance in general, which I've found where, for example, I'm not going to name names, but let's say some of my friends who are similar to me, where they've ended up going down the route of taking medication, like ADHD tablets and those sort of things. I remember you were always very much against that because you knew for a fact that this is just how I've been, like, for as long as you can remember. So that's something I've always appreciated. And with that as well, let's say, for example, if we were to talk about the differences between then and now, from your perspective, what do you think that I have done to kind of not change, but how have I developed over the years in terms of being able to manage that?
Yeah, I think you've remained very, like I said, focused. Like I said, right from the beginning, you've always been like that child who knows what they want. And not because you are my son, but it's almost like being misunderstood, where you want to communicate something, and that something is not what people expect you to like maybe do at that particular time. For example, you've always been someone who lights up the room, and whenever you are in class. But unfortunately, at that particular time, even if it's a good thing to light up the room, you were lighting up in class when a teacher is talking, and they wouldn't think it was appropriate at that particular time. But instead of them maybe trying to understand that, okay, this is a child who's happy, because it's not everything in class that made you happy. But unfortunately, it's not an atmosphere where, teachers will have time to say, oh, this child is like this child is like that. Therefore, you were deemed disruptive for most of the time. But now, I can see that maybe if we were to go back and those teachers would see you today, to see that your disruptiveness meant communication, they would have a different way of dealing with children of your nature. For example, like you said, I didn't think you needed all these ADHD medications, because you didn't. For me, it was your way of communicating, but in a different way. And fortunately, because of my own job, I kind of understood exactly where you were coming from or what you were trying to communicate. And now you are at a place where I feel I'm very happy, because you've been persistent and you've carried on, to believe in your self, to say, I still want to communicate. I still want to be me. And what I'm speaking to right now is you. Yeah.
No, I appreciate that. And even on the topic of, let's say, your job, because I know now it's 13 years since you first went into the mental health world. And what do you think? Of course, I know, and it's something that I'm very open about, even to other people and to you, about the fact that, of course, there's only so much that you can actually say about your job, because but in the sense of, what does it do for you, in the sense of what, let's say, for example, when you first started working in mental health, and now, what do you feel within yourself is actually developed over time, and how comes you're so passionate about it in general?
Being a mental health nurse has not just made me proud of my job, but it has made me a better mother, a better person, because I can relate to, anyone that has a child of whom I'm looking after. But watching your journey itself, because like I said, some of the behaviors the challenges that I faced with you, as my child, I had to use also my own experience to say, okay, how do I connect with my son when he's down? How do I connect with him when he's trying to communicate with me in this way or that way? I don't know whether it's the right time for me now to say, when you told me that you were going through challenges with your own self, at first I didn't understand what you were talking about, until when you would give me scenarios at work or what have you, all those challenges that you were facing. And fortunately for me, I had done my DBT. I don't know if you know what, dialectical behavioral therapy. That was meant for my workplace. But whatever I learned there made me apply it to you. When you would come and say, Mom, I've gone for my therapy, this is that. So it gave me more patience in dealing with not just, like I said, people in my own work environment, but to deal with my own environment at home. So I would say about my job as a nurse, I don't know if I've answered your question.
No, you have.
It did help me. Yeah.
No, and I agree with you in the sense that I think, and I'm very comfortable talking about the specific issues, and I think it's one of those things where I think it helped to be able to open up to you about the stuff I was dealing with, because whether it was just kind of stuff that was going on in my head, whether it was almost, I'll name it as it is, even substance abuse and stuff like that, where the fact that I could talk to you about it, and it wasn't one of those things where, of course, I know it's something that you feel quite strongly against, but being able to have that sort of space to be able to actually open up to you, to talk, to let you in on actually what I'm going through, what I'm dealing with, then gave me that sort of it gave me that sort of reassurance to know that, okay, do you know what, I can actually overcome this. And I think even in the last few years, especially since starting therapy, it's definitely helped massively, because I know for a fact that a lot of my friends, for example, they will be struggling with things. They'll either not know exactly how to open up, and then it's then one of those things where it's easy for people to kind of think, okay, do you know what, let me drink away my problems, let me smoke away my problems, or or even go to other extremes. Whereas I know for a fact that it's really, really helped, because then it's one of those things where, because of your line of work as well, is you're able to kind of give me first-hand experience or first-hand sort of advice in terms of, okay, if you're doing certain things, this is how I would recommend cutting down. This is what, or much healthier and possibly legal alternative as well. And it's one thing that I'm like super grateful for, because it removes that sort of, it's kind of helped to remove that sense of, or that feeling of guilt, the shame, like behind feeling like, oh, like I know I'm doing this, and I know, oh, my mum wouldn't be proud of this, or like it's something that has like helped massively in terms of actually being able to help me start to focus more on what's good and what I'm good at, and to actually make healthier choices. Whereas I feel if I didn't necessarily have that space, I would have struggled, because then there's not very many people that I trust with that sort of thing. So I think you handled it really well. So thank you. And then in terms of, for you personally, let's say, because of course like, your job is like super mentally, physically, emotionally challenging. When it comes to, let's say, your downtime and how you look after your own mental health, what's your usual go-to?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like not taking, let's say, if I'm going to work, for example, it's not taking my own issues to my workplace, because that way, you are just transferring a problem to another problem. Yeah, for me, it's like when I'm at home, I'm at home. When I'm at work, I'm at work. Yes, but I try, to be in my own space, to be honest, to like think or like reflect on certain things. Yes, I mean, my job is very challenging in that way, in the sense that there may be things that I've witnessed or things that have happened that may make me still, even when I'm at home, I'm thinking, wow, could I have dealt with this thing in a better way, or in that, like in a different way? But I always try and give myself time, to focus on positivity. I would say, for me, that's the main thing, to remain positive and to just say, okay, this has happened. If it's a negative thing, how would I do it better in like future? If it's a good thing, yeah, obviously I will be proud of how I would have done that. But that's my way of coping with my own mental health. Like I said, is just to differentiate like work and home. Yeah.
No, and I think that's another thing that I'm like very open to you about, the fact that I really respect that, even though I'm your child, and especially the youngest child as well, is where you're super reflective and self-aware. You don't have any sort of issues with even coming to any of your kids for advice in general. Whereas I feel like the tendency is very much leaning towards, oh well, you're a child, what do you know? Whereas you've never had that sort of mentality, and it shows, because even with our conversations, whether we're in a car, whether we're at home or wherever, where you're very open to kind of seeking advice, you're very open to actually hearing like a different perspective. And I think even in the sense of, let's just say, even in the last 5 years, even as my own mum, like there's been a lot of emotional growth that I've witnessed myself as well. So I'm glad that even no matter, you could be 40, 50, 60, it's one of those things where I think I respect the fact that you're always focusing on what you can improve on, what you can learn, and what you can do differently. And even on that as well, let's say, for example, let's just say even in the last 13 years or so, what kind of stands out to you in terms of sort of challenges that you've encountered like along the journey, whether it's to do with the actual before you even done your uni course, because you were 36 or 32 when you not
when
32.
I started my course.
Yeah,
about 37, 38. Yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of those sort of challenges from that point to now, what sort of stands out?
Yeah, I mean, the challenges obviously at that time was trying to juggle between motherhood and career, because between 30 and 37, I forgot about myself. Yeah, I thought, okay, what is more important right now is to bring up my kids. Like I said, you guys were young then. So the challenge was, okay, what do I focus on myself or my children? Yeah, so I did. The first one for me was my children first. Yeah, then I got to a point, the other challenge again is that, you guys I had to pick you up from school, and with what I was doing, I had to do the school runs. I had to ask for time from work to come and pick you up at a certain time. At times, bosses are not that flexible. Yeah, but most of the time, the good thing is they would allow me to come and pick you up. Until, I think I told you one example where when I was at Clapham Junction, because I was working on a train, by the way. I was a train guard, as you know. This gentleman said to me, "Oh, hello, are you in the right job?" That in itself just made me think, oh, first I was struggling inside, but it took someone to remind me that maybe I was worth more than what I was putting myself into. So that made me get back into the train very fast, and I thought, okay, this man doesn't even know me, but he said, "Are you in the right job?" What did he see in me that made him feel I was not comfortable with what I was doing? So it made me go through the train, through the newspapers. That's how I got to know that there was an open day at one of the universities that I went to. Yeah, so my journey just started from there. So there've been challenges, but mostly it's about me, like I said, not focusing on me. Yeah. Until now, I think I am finding that balance between family and work. Yeah.
Even with what you just said as well, with that, the person who asked you, are you in the right job? Let's say now that you're, let's just say that was probably 15, 16 years ago now.
2008.
2008. So it's stuck for a reason. Yeah. What if you were to kind of try and put that into words? What do you think he saw, would have seen in you?
to be honest, that's why I'm saying that's the important thing, whereby, like, me looking at you now, like I said, at times people say, because it's your son. Remember, my words have always been, I believe in you, no matter at your lowest. Something he has always said to me, no, my son is worth more than like this, or you would come to me, tell me your problems at work and what have you, and I'll be thinking, do they see what I see? Yeah, but now I think I've seen you at your happiest, especially at this point, whereby I think there are some people who are gifted in seeing certain things that not everybody sees. Some people may see things but may not like describe them or approach you and like tell you. So I thank that man for approaching me and telling me what I didn't see in myself. Yeah, so it's the same thing as like when I look at you now and I believe, you are living your like dream. Where I'm sitting today, it's not like something that just came from nowhere. You've been talking about this for the last 2 years, but they've been, but they've been circumstances or challenges that you've been facing. But when you told me about you meeting people through work, through that in itself made you want to reach, that thing. So I would say it is the same thing. Like when this guy saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. Yeah. But I think the job you are in now has made you the best in you, like sort of like come out.
No, I agree. And I think it's something that I remember we were talking about when we were coming back from Birmingham. And it's one of those things that I find interesting in the sense that I've been fortunate to obviously have you, like my siblings, and obviously a few other like people that I'm close to that have always kind of done their best to remind me of the good, because I tend to, not so much now, but before I would tend to focus more on the negatives, which clearly like manifested itself in the sort of situations I was like encountering. But I think it's what I've learned over the years is the fact that no matter how people view you, whether it's in the best way possible, the worst way possible, it comes back to what you were saying earlier. So once you start to make more time for yourself, you can then have that opportunity to actually see the good in yourself, because no matter how highly people speak of you, if you don't believe those things yourself, you'll always think, oh no, I'm not good enough, I'm not doing the right thing, I'm so and so. Whereas I think being able to have a safe space to open up, whether that's like through conversations with you, whether that's with therapy, it's definitely sort of made me slow down a bit. And this is what I find interesting about what we were talking about before, in the sense of kind of staying away from medication and stuff like that, because as I've gotten older and as I've sort of, I think, firsthand sort out different methods of coping, or even just learning about myself in general, it's one of those things where you then start to realize, like, okay, do you know what? If I know I'm still hyper to this day, but it's just the fact that now I know it's like, okay, there's some sort of level of duality, in the sense that in one moment I can be super hyper, and other moments I literally just want to be in my room watching TV and relaxing. And I think whereas before it was slightly difficult to, I felt as though it was one of those things, it was like, because I know I'll always have an element of me that's a little bit of a people pleaser, and I think that's why I'm in doing what I do now. But I think it's one of those things where it was quite heavy, in the sense of trying to meet different people's expectations, or not even trying, but feeling as though, you have to be the life of the party, you have to be a certain way, you have to be like this. Whereas it's like, I don't have to be anything that I don't want to be. And I think this is why I'm very much enjoying what I'm doing now. And it doesn't mean that I haven't enjoyed what I've done in the past. Of course, I'd say there were a lot more challenges than enjoyment, but it's nice because it's one of those things. I have to also then realize that, okay, I started working in a company with 20,000 people at the age of 17. And even that, realizing that, okay, I'm 23 now, but realizing that, oh my God, the level of pressure that I used to put on myself, whereas now I think, because we talk about it quite a lot, I think now it's like I'm actually able to be like, do you know what, I've had a good day today. And if it's not a good day, then it's then, okay, what can I do differently tomorrow that I can improve on what I'm doing, or what I can do myself to improve as a person. And yeah, no, I think that's something that I've 100% learned from you, which is like great.
What I want to say, like really, I don't want you to not forget the efforts that you've put, and something that you can also sort of make it as an awareness to other people that, first of all, it was you opening up to me, like talking to me, anything that other parents, obviously of our, let's say, ethnic minority, like we usually believe a child has to behave in a certain way, this kind of communication. We put barriers to our children to say, my child cannot talk to me about maybe substance misuse or this. Then we block that kind of communication, whereas a child is looking, like the word you use, like safe, like place, and also not to be judged. And for me, I think this is where you did very well in terms of like saying, Mom, I am struggling with 1, 2, 3. And that made me also be open-minded to say, okay, if I judge Malaksan, where else like will he run to a point that you knew when to say, okay, now I need help. And you did go through your, like I said, like therapy, which I think whatever person it was, did, very, very well, because I connected more with you. I could communicate with you. Even now, it's like the relationship between me and you has gone to that point where at times I say, do you know what? I wish most parents would have that. For me to call my own son my best friend is because, to be honest, it's not just that, but it's just the way you've been like open. And it has even helped you in a better way. There are some people that will talk about their struggles, but not come out of the trouble. But with you, it's more like you are discussing like these things, but finding a better way, of like overcoming those things. And to be honest, I think you are a different human being to like before you were 17. Now 23, I can really say you've made me aware, like at times it's not someone else's problem, it's my problem too. So how do I deal with that? Yeah. But the way you've just been, like I said, I wish all parents would have children or open up to their children, coming up to like them and telling them the most uncomfortable things, and also not judge their like children, but be there to like help them. And because for me, it has worked. Yeah.
No, and I agree. And even on that as well, it's like, let's say, for example, of course, because I know we've had judgment before from whether it's relatives or relatives about our sort of dynamic. What do you think has kind of encouraged you, let's say, for example, because I know what your upbringing was like, and the way we communicate and the openness, it wasn't necessarily like that. What do you think has helped you to kind of pick up the parenting, like your style of parenting? Like, what's helped you to kind of adopt to your style?
Yeah, this is what I'm saying, that it is a non-judgmental kind of approach. And if I look at in my family, there've been like sort of mental health issues. But during that time, like when I was young, I would watch, let's say, one of my brother one of my brothers struggle, but I didn't understand what that was about. I didn't understand what mental health was. My mom didn't understand. It was more like, okay, that's his behavior. Until, let's say, someone takes their own life. That's the only time you start to say, oh, okay, this is what it is. So now, that's why I'm in the position you are asking me. What my approach now is not to sweep things under the carpet, or to say, to put barriers in communication with your children or with anyone who comes to you crying for help. I am very open-minded and I don't like to judge. That's my approach. This is why now I have, better communication with my children, because all of you now, you can come and tell me good news, you can come and tell me bad news. So I have made you comfortable, not to say as a mother, all I want to hear is good news. It's not always like that. Yeah. You, as a parent, be open to saying, okay, my child, yes, I may be the most religious person. That doesn't mean my child has to be as religious as my self. By doing that, you are putting already barriers to your communication. Allow your children to be who they are until when you two, parent and child, come to that sort of level where you can understand each other. It's up to you to take time until when you say, okay, yeah, but you said, not that everything that I've said to you is what you approve of, and I'll stand by that. In the sense that, yes, but I can empathize and say, okay, these kind of things I don't like, but I can help you also come to terms, in getting help and what have you. Yeah. So that in itself makes you adapt that kind of parenting style where you, the bottom line is not to be judgmental. Yeah.
No, and I appreciate that. And even as well, I was just thinking now in the sense of, I'm going back to what you said previously, in the sense of where now you're in a position where you're almost trying to find that balance between, of course, being there for your family, but then at the same time also being there for yourself and managing with work as well. And of course, for a fact we have to talk about it. Yeah. Even the fact that now you've always been a creative person. You've always liked, in terms of art, in terms of drawing, in terms of let's say even, for example, books, which is now kind of where you're now on this journey where even though you've got a super demanding job where you're working, I'd say minimum 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week, but you still made time for something that you're passionate about. And in terms of your books, are you able to just kind of summarize why you've gone down this journey and what's inspired you to actually to start writing?
Yeah, I would say you, again, like I said, I think I told you, I'm not there yet, but what made me start to express myself more in paper is things that I've also maybe wanted as a child, things that I've lacked, things that I, maybe as a teacher myself, remember, I told you, I didn't realize that in the 35 children per class that I was teaching, each and every child there was coming from different backgrounds. But at that time, I was also young because I started teaching when I was 19. I didn't understand, that there were children in that classroom that were quiet. But my focus was mainly on those that were giving me the right answers. And you yourself, you inspired me in the sense that when you came home one day and said to me, Mom, I've got 4 GCSEs. And I said, what? 4? That's great. And you said, what? How can you be happy? And I said, honestly, I expected 0. So you telling me that you had 4 GCSEs was like the best news like ever. And I didn't want to judge you on like that, to say, okay, my child, okay, because I have achieved so many things in class, I was like this. Now my children have to be like that. So you inspired me to write one of the books, obviously that child who is the underground, who no one believes in, where people think, okay, just because you've not achieved an A star in this and that, then that marks the end of your life. So watching you like grow, become who you want, and you are actually achieving much, much better than the people I know have been to university, have like done that. So that's not a measure. So yeah, you are one of the people that have inspired me to say every parent out there should believe in their child, despite their achievements, be it academic or what they are good at in terms of art or what have you. Yeah. So now I felt like I just have to, raise awareness, like sort of through my like books, to other parents who may have been thinking the same way as I was thinking before, but I have learned, through mistakes, to now say, okay, maybe this is another way, not best way, but another way of, like raising our like children, to just see them as individuals, not to compare, to say your brother is a lawyer, so you have to be a lawyer, or this is like that, then you have to be like that. No. Yeah. But every child is unique, is like different. Yeah, that's my like drive. Yes. I mean, my time is very limited in terms of I have to focus on my work, but that little time that I have, is the time that I'm using to put my thoughts to paper. Yeah.
No, I appreciate that. And it's actually funny because I was talking to my friend Caitlin and her boyfriend about it, in the sense of, because he's Nigerian, and of course, like with, like, I know of course different cultures will experience the same thing, but I think it's one of those things that I've realized over the years, is that with, I don't know, people from an African background, for example, it's easy for parents to kind of pass down what they experienced, in the sense of where parents would be like, oh, this person's a doctor, this person's doing this person's doing that, as opposed to, let's say, for example, I hated school. I didn't enjoy it whatsoever, and it was weird. Of course, it was like overwhelming, but it was so weird once I'd actually started working. Like, let's say when I joined like Frank, and it was one of those things where it was like I went from kind of being like this class clown who didn't know what they wanted out of life, to then actually being like, okay, do you know what? I'm really good at this. Where I was getting in trouble for talking all the time, now my job was renting flats to people and meeting however many people every day, every week, every month. And this is where I think that approach is definitely something that is worth raising awareness of the fact that everybody's different, and what's one person's strengths may be somebody else's weaknesses, and it's to just sort of take people from face value, which again is something that you've I know you've been really good at, whether it's me, whether it's my sister, brother, like all of us, we're seen as individuals as opposed to as those like almost having to compete with one another, because all of our journeys are completely different, all of our approaches are completely different, so that's hats off to you, basically.
I should correct you as well. I don't think you hated school, but it's what the school expected of you, where you felt like maybe I can't be good at like this. Whereas, like I said, if schools would like focus on like children with what they are good at, which is not very possible, I think then children would be happier to like go to school to say, oh, I'm good at like basketball. Then maybe if I could focus on like that, and you are encouraged to like focus on what you are good at, then you find that you may like school better. But if you are just going to school and they are saying, okay, get A in maths, get A in history, and all those subjects are not what you want. It's not like you hate school, but you hate the package, or you hate being in an environment where you feel you are incompetent. Yeah. So maybe I could say that's a correction, because I think you were always on time to go to school. It is only when you go to school that you were saying, oh, why am I here? Yeah, because you were obviously being compared to other children there that made you not like the environment.
Yeah. No, and I agree with that, for sure. And let's just say, in terms of, just to sort of wrap things up, in your 53, soon to be 54 years of living, if you were to give any sort of advice from what you've learnt over the years, what stands out for you in terms of something that you've learnt and has kind of stuck with you, and you wish you'd learnt it earlier?
Yeah, I think, like I said to you, that being an African mother, let me put it straight that way, this country has taught me, first of all, it gives opportunities to everyone, despite what age you are. And also that as a mother, in this kind of world where we live in, we shouldn't always be judgmental, because, to be honest, trust me, like you said, my 53 years of life, I've learned that the way I am bringing up my children is way different from the way I was brought up. Because we were brought up with expectations, be like this, be like that. There was never openness. There was never giving you the opportunity as a child to choose your own path, your own journey. So, to be honest, up to now, I just feel like it's an awareness. I say, most younger, maybe mothers, should learn to adopt that. When a child comes home saying, I haven't achieved this, you should still say, oh, the fact that they've woken up, gone to school to try and learn things, it is an achievement on its own. Yeah, until when they get to that point where they know what they want, and the course of, activities or profession that they choose. One person may say, I want to be a chef. In my culture, if you said you wanted to be a chef back home, you get a beating. To say, why do you want to be a chef when there's so many things you can do? You can be a lawyer, you can be a doctor, you can be this. But now, like I said, in this part of the world, now I can see that there are people that have left even medicine school to focus on being a chef, because that's what makes them happy. That's where their passion is. So it's more of believing in your child, allow them to be who they want to be. I think that's what I would say.
No, and I think that's a lovely bombshell for us to wrap up on. But no, thank you so much for all of that. Thank you for being here, being my first guest as well. And I'm super excited for what's to come for both of us. So, no, thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, and thank you for honoring me to make you your first guest, and I'm very super honored.
Actually, on that topic, just quickly, this I stick to my promises. Yeah. I remember you said, when was I? I was 15, and you said, okay, I don't want, what did you say? You were like, I don't want you guys getting tattoos of me when I'm gone. Make me smell my flowers. And now, out of all 3 children, bearing in mind there's a gap of 5 and 7, I was the first one to get a tattoo to do with anything with you.
That's
and I told
me
you,
being me. I said, I don't like people who do things when someone is dead. Yeah. Say, oh, she was a good mom. And then now you can have a rose of me. No, do it whilst I have the chance to appreciate it. And you've done that. Yeah. And thank you very much. Yeah.
No, that was it. But no, thank you. No, thank you very much, man.
Thank you.
And you can dance for inspiration.